In fact, The Hollywood Reporter now asking, will Apple be the next tech giant to buy a studio? Let's bring in New York Times columnist, CNBC contributor, and fellow DePaul University alumnus Jim Stewart. And still with us is Trung Phan, lead writer for The Hustle. Jim, you've been covering this space for so long, and it seems to me Apple, though, is allergic to spending big money on other people's ideas, whether it's in tech or probably in content. But do they need to if they're going to succeed here?
Well, I think everybody's going to have to rethink this at this point. I have been covering this a long time, and one of the biggest question marks has been how many streaming services is the market going to support? And we're starting to get some clarity there. And when you've got the big three with over 100 million and everybody else far behind, it's beginning to look like the number may be a lot smaller than anyone really suspected. In fact, for somebody of my age, it's amazing that we're kind of looking at a configuration like the old big three TV networks. So I think Apple is going to have to come out of its shell, and the other sort of mid-tier players in the 30 to 50 million, which includes the newly merged Discovery, AT&T, Viacom, CBS, NBC Universal, are going to have to really look hard about how are they going to get the scale. I mean, it's amazing to me that Netflix spent something like $17 billion on content last year. That is a huge arms race, and you're going to have to be big to keep up with that.
Yeah, and Trung, Netflix doesn't really like making money as much as Apple does, though. That seems to be the key. Netflix is perfectly happy losing money, spending billions that they don't have on buying and making content. But Apple likes to make money. Do they even really need to buy a studio or be like successful in the sense that the others do, because they're making money selling computers and iPhones and whatnot? And as long as you play that video on your phone, Apple probably doesn't care whether they own it or not.
No, absolutely. I think they have the similar model as Amazon, right? So Jeff Bezos famously said, when we win an Emmy, people buy more shoes. So Apple's in the same position. They get to monetize content with hardware, the most expensive hardware, basically, for consumers in terms of phones and laptops. But I think, if they were to make an acquisition in this space, it would be their largest acquisition ever. Beats by Dre right now is their largest acquisition. It's about $3 billion. And I was just looking at pardon?
It's tiny. It's a measly $3 billion in this market.
Measly, totally easy for them. And, the point is that what studios are there really even out there, right? I just took a quick look. Lionsgate is out there. They're worth less than $5 billion, but they have the kind of content library where it might be worth it for Apple to get a crazy type of franchise like the Hunger Games or Twilight, which are both under Lionsgate's umbrella. So those two type of franchises you can create a universe around. I guess, you can make a joke about Hunger Games, right? It's like every time you it's basically the same thing. But you have the Hunger Games anyways. You drop an iPhone there, everybody's going after it. So there's a kind of that parallel. But I think if you're looking, do they have the money? Yes, they have the money. Do they have the appetite to do it? They spent $6 to $10 billion recently on content. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for them to spend this much money on content. And I think this is a little bit different than their previous technology acquisition.
Right.
It's in the butt. It could happen.
It can. Jim, we've been talking about the companies and how they will fare, but what about the consumer in all this? And of course, I should give the disclosure: CNBC is part of NBC Universal, which is part of Comcast, which charges you for cable and whatnot. But I mean, what happens to the consumer? Because this was supposed to be about a la carte and lots of choices, but now it seems like there's this rebundling. There's all these services, but just a few companies maybe are going to own them.
Well, there's no question that we've been in a golden era for the consumer in terms of television consumption and television quality as well. It's amazing. But, I mean, the fear certainly is if this turns into some kind of oligopoly, you're going to get two things. You're going to get less choice and you're going to get higher fees. I mean, Disney Plus is at a very low rate. Netflix has pushed up the price a little bit. But I think everyone thinks the game plan is to dominate, establish your terrain, realize these economies of scale, try to, get a network effect going here, and then raise prices once you've gotten a lot of the competition out of the way. So this is not necessarily good news for consumers.